Hi everyone, it's Amy Caroline. Welcome back to a brand new video and welcome back to my channel today. I'm gonna do another video about Ghost Train being on the Travel Channel, and I'm going to read you guys a story. And then I'm going to show you an example of how Ghost Train ought to look like if it were put on the Travel Channel. So I'm going to read you the story and then I'm going to show you my example of haunted hotels, okay? Of haunted hotels and of what Ghost Train ought to look like on the Travel Channel if it were put on there, okay? I'm going to show you an example from haunted hotels and of what Ghost Train ought to look like if it were put on the Travel Channel, okay? So in my Ghost Train book, this story is called The Body Under the Train, And here we go, folks. Years ago, the section of Baltimore and Ohio track east from Terra Alta, West Virginia, was overseen by a section foreman named Mr. Wilburn. Three of the section men, Joe, Bob, and Dick, roomed in Mr. Wilburn's house. Bob and Dick were bachelors, and everyday payday they headed to Terra Alta for a night on the town. One payday, Bob was assigned to take the night shift walking the track. He wanted to go to Terra Alta, and Joe, who was married, needed the money, so they switched off. After a night of drunken gambling, Dick was thrown in jail for disturbing the peace. Bob had to walk home down the tracks without a lantern. On his way home, Bob had to walk through a deep cut. He couldn't see anything as he tramped through the excavation without a light. The cold wind funneled through the deep man-made ravine, making eerie noises. As he listened, Bob remembered the evil reputation of the place and shuddered as he recalled some of the stories he had heard about. He started walking faster. About halfway through the cut, Bob stepped on something soft. He thought it was an animal that had been killed by a train and reached down to throw it off the track. He his gripping fingers felt locks of hair, eye holes, a nose. It was a human head. Bob ran for the Wilburn house, screaming. He took an hour for Mr. Wilburn and his wife to calm him down enough to tell them what had happened. After hearing Bob's story, Mr. Wilburn and a neighbor walked back down the track and found Joe's body had been hit by a train and beheaded. Several days later, Bob quit his job with the B&O. He told Mr. Wilburn that Joe was haunting him and that he kept seeing Joe's headless body under a coach of the night train. Mr. Wilburn kept telling Bob there were no ghosts, but Bob quit and left Terra Alta for good. So So listen. The when the story goes back in time, they ought to get to they ought to get to they ought to get the people to let the story go back in time. They ought to get the people to go back in time, and then they can start haunting the place. Then they can start haunting the place. Then they can start haunting the place after they return as spirits. Okay, I'm gonna show you an example of haunted hotels, so this is haunted hotels. I'm gonna show you an example, and it will give you an example of what Ghost Train ought to look like if it were put on the Travel Channel, and if it were put on TV. Okay. So please enjoy this. And let me know if Ghost Train can be a documentary on the Travel Channel. Okay, let me know if Ghost Train can be a documentary on the Travel Channel with the story that I just read. Okay, so here we go, folks.
Holidays are a time to relax in a beautiful setting. Golf, swimming, rambling, and ghosts. This is a tour of a very different kind. In England, a young maidservant may forever roam this country mansion, trapped by a fiery inferno from long ago. In the American South, this bed and breakfast is said to be home to a murderous spirit who lingers at the site of her unspeakable crime.
There are some spirits that consider you an uninvited guest, and sometimes they let you know it.
And in New England, peering eyes from beyond keep watch as guests pass through their former home. Journey into a realm of fear, where phantoms roam and terrifying tales come alive. When checking into a haunted hotel, double occupancy can take on a whole new meaning. On the New England coast in Newport, Rhode Island, magnificent mansions line the ocean drive, each one just a little larger than the next. Off this coast road is one of Newport's most refined houses, the Inn at Shadow Lawn. The inn features 8 elegant guest rooms, decorated in the style of the Victorian era. Here, the ghosts of those who lived and died long ago may still wander. And according to some, other phantoms keep watch.
Some of them are very unhappy that we're here.
The story of one troubled spirit goes back to Victorian times. In 1856, a wealthy man named Hamilton Hoppin built the home on the outskirts of town.
The house is one of the first Italianate stick-style houses to be built in the United States.
This rarity helped make Shadow Lawn much admired. Hamilton Hoppin may have enjoyed showing off his fine house a little too much, lording it over his younger brother Thomas.
Well, what would you like me to do about that?
Jealousy eventually drove the two brothers apart, but perhaps not forever. A century after both brothers had died, the innkeepers conducted a fruitless search for a picture of Hamilton, the house's original owner. But they were able to acquire a painting of the younger brother, Thomas, which they hung prominently in Shadow Lawn.
It's right on the staircase as you go in. It's quite impressive. He looks like he owns the world, not to mention the Inn at Shadow Lawn.
Perhaps the painting awakened a long-dead rivalry. The innkeepers believe that at the very moment the image of Thomas was hung on the wall, Hamilton Hoppin sent an angry message.
When we put his picture up, all the clocks in the house turned back an hour. It was uncanny. Unbelievable. Every single clock in the house. To me, it seemed like going back in time.
The managers quickly discovered that Hamilton and Thomas had never settled their differences.
There was a very heaviness to the room at the time, and we felt the coldness.
What they saw next would haunt them forever.
We witnessed the spirits of Hamilton Hoppin and his younger brother Thomas Hoppin. They got into an argument. Thomas was torturing his older brother for some reason.
The hoteliers say that as long as Thomas has a place in the house, Hamilton will never rest in peace. And that the brothers keep a close eye on one another and all who enter the home.
I feel that he's looking at me going up the steps when I get to that picture. And when I come down the steps after checking in a guest, he's looking at me.
But there may be an even darker spirit here, a ghost whose anger can reach into the living world.
There are also other spirits here at the inn at Shadow Lawn that are here because they have no other choice.
Each night during the month of June, the innkeepers go to bed asking themselves one question. Will tonight be the night when she returns? Haunted hotels can make for unusual holidays. In Newport, Rhode Island, the inn at Shadow Lawn appears fated to play host to a wronged woman. There is no way of knowing which night she will pick or what she will destroy. But every June, objects in the front hallway are found violently smashed on the floor. Most recently, Shadow Lawn guests were awakened in the middle of the night by the sound of shattering glass.
Our grand mirror came crashing down into the hallway. It must have been 2:30 in the morning.
Who is the angry spectre behind this mischief? The story of this spirit dates back to 1913. Legend has it that a newlywed heiress moved to Shadow Lawn with her husband, a dashing Newport doctor. But the fairy tale life she'd imagined came crashing down around her when her husband revealed his true colors.
He started openly cheating on her with other women. He would parade his women in front of his wife.
Using his wife's money, the doctor bought one of the first horseless carriages.
At first, when it was purchased, he would take his wife out, but that became less and less. It was more of a time to flaunt and philander around with his other ladies.
The home where the newlyweds were meant to grow old together became a cold and lonely place, and the lady of the house began to change.
She became very secluded, stayed away from people, stayed in her room, didn't really talk to anyone.
Every day, the doctor's wife would stand by her window, watching, waiting for her philandering husband to return. And the rage inside her grew. Until, on a warm day in June, the doctor returned home from one of his afternoon trysts. This time, someone was waiting for him in the bushes. An unseen assailant gunned down the doctor.
Literally out of the blue, out of nowhere, he was shot to death.
No one who knew the couple had any doubt as to who his killer was. The doctor's wife was charged with murder. Though she was eventually acquitted, locals were sure it was a case of a woman scorned and driven to kill. The entire town shunned her for the rest of her life. The innkeepers believe that each June she returns to Shadow Lawn to tell her side of the story, that the doctor left her no other choice.
She does want to make herself known. She does want to tell her story, to put her point across to people.
So when antiques come crashing down in the front hall, the innkeepers see it as her way of striking back at those who would judge her.
Because I'm sure she did love him, there must have been a tremendous amount of guilt.
There are guests who have been startled by a shadowy figure by the bedroom window, staying up late.
In the room that she does inhabit, lights have remained on, possibly waiting for him to come home.
The innkeepers believe it is the doctor's wife, hoping against hope that her straying husband will finally come home to her. And every June, it seems she almost gets her wish.
Once a year, a horseless carriage would come up into the driveway, and somewhere along the driveway, it would vanish. Since he never made it home, this is his way of finally making it home.
Some believe the inn at Shadow Lawn is full of other spirits as well.
They can be sitting next to you at dinner time. They can be going up the staircase with you as you're bringing in your luggage.
But be warned, these ghosts have their own ways of letting you know they were here first.
There are some spirits that consider you an uninvited guest in their home. And sometimes they let you know it.
It appears some spectres keep watch. Others have tales to tell.
Okay, so I'm gonna
And
stop
there are
there.
those that-
I'm gonna stop there. So you see that is an example of what Ghost Train ought to look like if it were put on the Travel Channel. Okay. Did you guys see how the story went back in time? Did you guys see how the story went back in time when the people came and the story went back in time? And also, did you guys see of how the apparitions were appearing? Well, guess what? Now the story that I just read, that's what has to happen in Ghost Train, okay? That's what has to happen in the Ghost Train documentary if it were put on the Travel Channel, okay? That's what has to happen in there, and that's what they need to put that is what they have to put in Ghost Train in the documentary if it were a documentary on the Travel Channel. And that is what Ghost Train has to have, okay? That is what Ghost Train has to do. Let the story go back in time and let the people go back in time and let the people return as spirits also, okay? So yeah, and hopefully this will be a season episode. The body under the train. Hopefully this will be a season episode of Ghost Train on the Travel Channel if it were put on the Travel Channel. And those of you who work for the Travel Channel, if you live in Los Angeles, if you live in London, if you live in if you live in Denver, Colorado, if you live in New York City, if you live in Tennessee, if you live in Nashville, Tennessee, if you live in Tennessee, if you live in Nashville, Tennessee, and if you live in New Jersey, if you live in North Carolina, if you live in Utah, if you live in Arizona, if you live in Kansas and you work for the Travel Channel if you work for the Travel Channel, and if you live in any of these places, and if you work for the Travel Channel, please put this episode and this season on there. Please put this story and this episode on there, just like you saw with haunted hotels, okay? Okay? All right? So anyway, I'm going to come back. I'm going to come back later on tonight and do another story and do some more stories and show you more examples also. And I'm going to go ahead and click off and give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and ring the bell. And I will see you guys later for my next video and my next one, okay? Okay, bye everybody. Bye.